So one of the moves that we practice in Pilates is called the shoulder bridge, or the bridge, the glute bridge. So how do I see the glute bridge being done incorrectly, or how could we do it incorrectly, which could hurt your neck or your back or your feet? So first thing when you're doing the shoulder bridge is you don't want anything underneath your head, because you want your neck to move, your cervical spine to move. So take away anything underneath your head, and your feet can be fairly close towards your sit bones. If they're too far away, you'll find that your knees will go all over the place and you might hike your hip up and it just doesn't feel right. And you want to have your feet fairly close towards you and a gap between your knees. You can always close that sometimes, but let's for today just have the gap between the knees. I don't really want to connect the adductors for now. Don't really want them to rely on each other. So you want to find a connection with your knees to feel strong in alignment with your hip bones, knees and hip bones, so your femurs are in a good position in your pelvis. So a science geeky bit coming up. So are your heels in alignment with the rest of your feet, or are your heels rolling in, or are your heels rolling out? You can usually tell what your knees are up to. So if your heels are rolling out, facing outwards, your knees might be rolling in. So can you have your feet in a straight position? And you can always, because you can't see what's happening, if you've someone else in the house with you, ask them to use your phone and take a picture of your feet. What do they look like? Because you don't see them. And it's quite interesting when people, I do this and people say, look, can you change the position of your feet? And you put them in the correct position. Like, that doesn't feel right. So it's quite useful to show a picture of what your feet look like when you're trying to do a certain exercise. Okay, so if you start to press your feet down, you can feel the ball of your big toe, the ball of your little toe, and your heel. So you've got that tripod underneath your foot. Yes, and when you start to do that pressing down, you feel your lower back starts to drop down towards the mat. So you start to roll off your tailbone and onto your lower back and onto your lower ribs. So you feel lower ribs in your chest bone drop down to the floor, because this is starting to lift. So your pubic bone starts to move towards your ribs, and you'll feel that that's when your head, you start to notice your head moving, and then you start to lift. Sacrum comes off the floor, sacrum comes down, sacrum comes off the floor, sacrum comes down. So can you keep your chin close towards your chest, towards your throat? As you do that, you'll lift, and as you come down, this bit comes down first, yes? So your chest bone drops first. So you'll notice if you put your hands underneath your back, come down one bit at a time. As if you're laying tracks down. And then you come down towards the tailbone. So tailbone comes down last, and then you reverse that. Tailbone lifts, sacrum lifts, lower back lifts, lower ribs lift, mid ribs, shoulder blades, where you rest, just there. And then when you come back down, the lower shoulder blades are heavy, and then the mid back, where the heart line or the bra line is, lower ribs, lower back, top of your pelvis, middle of your pelvis, and then your tailbone. So where it starts to go wrong is that one knee might fall out or one knee might fall in. You might find your feet lifting, so sometimes I see people coming out with their feet trying to lift, unless someone's instructed that, have your feet down on the floor so your toes aren't lifting. So your brain isn't trying to overwork the front of your legs, your shins or your toe extensors to try and lift your hips up. So if your glutes aren't working as well as they should, your brain will try and recruit other parts of your body to try and get you up there. So if you slow the movement down, you can observe that and being aware of what part of your body is your brain trying to work instead of your glutes. I see toes a lot. I'm lifting the feet quite a lot. I also see this a lot, so the chin lifts a lot, so the neck could be working for the glute. The back of the body, that back line of fascia, glutes, can work sometimes. So keep your chin down, which is why you don't want anything underneath your head. If you have something underneath your head and you try and come up here, you get a lot of compression up here in the top of your chest and in the front of your throat, and you'll be like, can't breathe. You'll be feeling like you're going to suffocate yourself. So let's think about the arms as well. So if you have your palms facing upwards and your arms out a little bit as you come up, it's quite nice to do that because it allows the arms to drop back so you have more space in your chest bone. Your shoulder blades can feel heavy as you come back down. You can allow the arms to roll back down and forwards. So you can roll them out so the palms face upwards. So your thumbs, if I'm bringing them here, you can see what I'm doing. Thumbs roll out, and as you come back down, the arms can roll back and inwards. So you could bring some movement into the upper back, into the arms. And you will notice that in the upper shoulder blades as well. So when the arms roll out, you might feel the shoulder blades feeling heavier. So you get some movement in your arms as well, in your shoulders, as well as the glutes. And then notice as you lift and lower, if you were on a beach, on the sand, not a pebbly beach, I don't know about doing a shoulder bridge on a pebbly beach, on a sandy beach, if you were lifting, can you lower and lift and lower in the same position? So when you come back down, you're not swaying off to one side. So you stay in the middle because you want your glutes really to be working equally on both sides. So you might find that one glute will be working more than the other, and you might find the glute that's not working, the hip might drop, it might not lift as well as the other glute. So if that's the case, if one glute drops a little bit, as you come back down, you might sway over onto the stronger side because you haven't got the support on the other side. So if you put your fingers on your hip bones, the hip bones are the bony bits at the front of your pelvis, which are in line with the middle of your knees, the middle of your thighs, you'll find as you lift and lower, you get to know which glute is stronger. Can your hips come up equally? Can you keep a level here? So you practice a few to see what your toes are doing, what your feet are doing. Can you find equal hip bones? You're just noticing, just being aware of it. And when you bring your brain's attention and awareness to it, it will start to feel that it's, okay, so this is this and this is that, and we want to reorganise the movement, reorganise the pattern. There's lots of things that can compensate for your glutes. It can be tightness in the hips, it can be your neck, it can be your toes, it can be the other glute. So take it slowly, make it a slow movement. You don't have to come up all the way, you can just come up a little bit and then come back down. So you're just contracting at the front here, pubic bone to rib cage, and then let it go. Pubic bone to rib cage, lift the tailbone, lift the sacrum, and then come back down. So you could start with a slow, small movement. And then when you feel ready, you can come up higher without compensating, without overworking or creating too much effort in your jaw, in your neck, and in your toes. Okay, so if you find it tricky with your knees and they just go all over the place, you get yourself a book or a towel, or oh, there's the blanket. I was wondering if that one. That's easier. Put that between the legs. Okay, so it gives you one less thing to think about as you're lifting and lowering. So try not to go. Not trying to squeeze that thing. Squeeze that thing, squeeze it. It's not like that because you'll find that you'll tighten up everywhere else. So just lightly hold on to the blanket or the block or the cushion as you lift and lower. And then obviously you make it a lot more challenging by coming up and lifting the feet, or lifting the heels, or lifting one leg, and you do all of that fancy stuff, you know, right? But you earn your right to do that by noticing. There's not much point coming up here and lifting your leg if you're going to be lifting your chin, and if you're going to be overlifting your ribs, and your toes are lifting on the other foot, because you're going to be compressing your back, your neck's going to be tight, you won't be able to breathe well, and your toes will be lifting, and so you'll be overworking all the muscles in your leg on the other side and the shin, and your glutes will be like, do you know what, this is great without us doing anything. So slow it down. slow it down and just bring it back to having more awareness of what's working where, and reorganizing that amazing body of yours into a pattern of I don't know, correct isn't the right word really, is it? Because it makes you sound like you're having your knuckles wrapped. Just having awareness of how your body moves and where its patterns are, and the habits we get into through our seated position, through any injuries, through any traumas that we've had, and any surgeries, things like that. Okay, happy practicing. Love you.